So, hello and welcome to another episode of Kiara's Tech Adventures. This is going to be the start of a little coding series I'll be doing, so the videos won't probably come straight after one another, as I do need to think about what I'm going to be doing for the project because I'm not really sure on what I want to do it on yet. So for this video, I'm just going to explain the default MVC project in Visual Studio, and I'm going to be using Visual Studio 2015 Community, which is the free version for this video. So to get to the MVC project, which we'll be doing, which I'll be explaining, we just call it MVC project. Ooh. Okay, so the one that we'll be using is ASP.NET 4.5.2, and it's just MVC, and we'll just leave it all as default for now. So when it finally loads, you'll be greeted with a screen like this. So all the references will load in. As you can see, there's a lot of references there. They're just the DLLs that are included into this project. So you have your views, which will be HTML files. Then you have your models, which will usually be C# files. And then you have your controllers, which will also be C# files. And then you have your scripts, which will be JavaScript files. So if we just start this up in Google Chrome, you'll see what the default project looks like. So this is what your default page should look like. So you'll have obviously the placeholders for everything. If you change your application name, that'll change there. Home, about, contact, these are just the normal pages. And because we didn't turn off Windows user authentication, you can also have your login and register page as well. So if we get started with the views, so this is your about page. So viewbag.title is about. So if you change that, it'll change on the page that you just saw before. Index page. This is usually the default page that you go to in your application, so when you press start, it will automatically go to index. So obviously here's all the paragraphs that we saw before. If we just go on here and home, here's where all this text is there. So basically these HTML pages are written in obviously HTML, and these classes here are Bootstrap. Bootstrap is something that you can add into your project, so you don't need to learn CSS, because CSS can be very annoying, and Bootstrap is very good. You just put classes on things that you want, basically. So if you want to learn more about Bootstrap, you can just Google Twitter Bootstrap, and that will take you to the page where it shows you what all these components are. So basically the way Bootstrap works, these here mean basically that this will take up 4 spaces in the grid, and the grid on the page for Bootstrap is basically split into 12 sections. So if you wanted things like to have 3 space, well, to be a third each in the space that they have, you give it 4, 4, and 4. And if you want it all to be in line, you put it into a row. So JavaScript files. These are usually just scripts that are here. In the normal MVC project, you can see they're just like Bootstrap and stuff like that, but I'm usually used to using them as view models. So basically view models are the intermediate between the views and the controller. So the layout of an MVC project is you have your model, which is the back end of the project, which has your data in, so like stuff like a database, it would be the classes on top of that. A controller basically acts as an in-between of the model and the views. So any information that your user requests while using a view, the controller will go get that information out of the model. A view model basically is the in-between of the controller and the view, so it will package up the information all nice and send it to your view, so you don't need to do any extra horrible things on your view basically to get the information looking nice and in the right places. So your usual controllers in here are just C# files, so you will need to learn C# to be able to use controllers like this. So home controller basically means that this controls the home page. So, well, the home kind of pages, if you get what I mean. So when you go to the index page, what will happen is it will run this function in here. When you go to the about page, it will run this function in here. when you go to the contact page, it will run this function in here. So models are basically how your data is stored. So they're usually just classes. Now I usually use Entity Framework for my models, so that is something that I will be probably going over in the project that I will be making. But this is just some generic models that you can use to get started. Basically these here are called annotations, and they make sure that, well, whatever this is here is required means it has to have something inside it. Email address needs to be in the format of an email address. So now that I've gone over the structure of the default MVC project that you get, now as you can see, I did say before that I use a lot more JavaScript in my MVC projects. So basically jQuery is like the kind of default thing you want to use. So it is used by a lot of other JavaScript libraries, and don't get me wrong, jQuery is very good to learn. It's very good to learn it so you can understand how other libraries work. But it can get very messy with jQuery, because basically jQuery, so say you want a button to go red when nothing is on the filled into the boxes, so that the user knows they shouldn't press the button while there isn't any words in any of the boxes on the screen. Basically, you'd need to make sure that you have a class or an ID on your button. You'd need to check that all of the boxes on the screen are empty yourself, and then you'd need to turn the button red depending on whether there is any information in those boxes. So there are many libraries that can help you to do this, to cut down the amount of code that you need to write to be able to do what you want. So there's stuff like Angular, Angular 2, Knockout. One of the ones that I'll be using is Knockout. I have used Angular 2, but I didn't really like the way the folder structure was, so I won't be using that one for the project that I'll be doing, but I may use it in future projects because it was pretty good the way that you have to set things out. It was nice and logical. But Knockout I find is quite easy for, well, to understand. It's nice and neat as well. So this is just a short overview of what I'll be doing in my coding videos. So I probably won't go into how to actually do the code necessarily. I'll just be showing you how to set it out, how basically you should try and think about doing things, and maybe a few tips along the way. But if you'd want to do more stuff like this yourself, you'd obviously need to learn the languages yourself. One of the good websites that I've used is Codecademy for JavaScript. I think they do HTML as well. For C#, obviously you've got Microsoft Virtual Academy, which has some great things to get you started in C#. So you can leave some suggestions down below in the comments on what you think I should do. So basically what would you like the project to be based on, and what things you want me to go over, as I'm still unsure on what I'd want to do the project on. I mean, the easiest thing I could probably do it on is like a to-do list, where basically you put things on there, when you tick them off, they're gone, stored in a database maybe, and that's quite simple. But obviously to get the structure down and to get everything written can be quite hard to get your head around. But if you think there's something that you'd find more interesting, just pop it down below and I'll definitely give them a read. So if you like this video, give it a like. If you want to see more videos like this, give me a subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.